My M50 daughter, F17, recently bought herself a plane ticket from the UK to LA. She did not ask for permission and bought the tickets and is now stating that she is going whether I allow her to or not. She bought the tickets a week ago and only tried talking to me about 3 days ago. She does not have a clear plan of whom she is staying with or what she is doing whilst she is there. She stated that her reasons for not asking me is because she'd already asked her mother. We are divorced and my daughter moved in with me 4 months ago. She thought that she did not have to get my permission as she thought her mother's was enough and that I scare her. Whilst I am open to the idea that I may scare her, I find it harder to believe that when she went ahead and bought the tickets regardless. She lied to me and I feel like I've been manipulated into this as her mother has said she can go despite neither of us giving permission for her to buy the tickets for 6 weeks' time. My concerns are that she's 17 and never left the country on her own. She's never been the States and she doesn't know what TSA can be like. She's previously struggled with major anxiety to the point where she's found it difficult to get the underground in the UK. We don't have any family or friends out in LA that could get to her if she needed anyone, so there's no fallback plan and she's only 17. She doesn't have any world experience. I'm very reluctant to let her go due to her poor decision making regarding the whole situation as it stands. All of my side of the family have said that it's a bad idea and that I shouldn't let her go. But my daughter has said that she will hate me forever if I don't let her go and her mother doesn't think it's a bad idea. Edit. For those asking why I've ignored the whole daughter being scared of me. She tends to pick and choose when she wants to be scared of me. When it comes to asking for money, or a lift to a party or work, or to come get her before her phone dies late at night. She doesn't have an issue asking me for anything. She only becomes scared of me when she does something wrong and then doesn't want to face the consequences and uses her fear against me so that I can't instill any consequences. Also, her plans for accommodation is one of 2 friends but she's unsure who and has never met them in real life as they are people she met online and video calls most nights to game with. But I have never met them and therefore don't trust them. Update. Firstly, thank you to everybody who has offered advice and ideas on how to tackle this. My daughter and I have since sat down and tried to the best of our abilities to talk this through in a calm manner. She continued to demand that she was going to the States regardless of having my blessing or not. The conversation became heated and she decided to bring her mother in for backup. However, she eventually decided to reveal that one of the friends that she could stay with is actually coming to the UK to visit within the month. She has said that she can give me all of her friends' parents' contact details. I am still undecided. My daughter deceived me through her actions and whilst I am doing my best to not let that affect my decision towards this, it does need to address so that she doesn't think she can steamroll every time she makes a rash decision. My eldest daughter suggested that I genuinely consider all the options she has but find consequences regarding the deceit more domestically, like grounding her for a few months. I have not decided whether she can go or not. However, I am willing to meet her friend who is coming to visit and have some very long discussions with parents. Thank you all for your advice. It's all been very helpful and made me feel less alone in my reaction to my daughter's decisions. Comment 1. NTA. It sounds like she's about to be sex trafficked. If her friends were real, they'd make an effort to communicate with you and her mom and give you all their information to ensure she was safe, because any sane person would realize how dangerous this was. LA is expensive, there's no way she should be making this trip without the ability to rent a room on her own in case her accommodations fall through, which she won't be able to do at 17, and book an emergency flight back home. Comment 2. NTA. You have other issues, clearly, but as for travel, a kid who can't use public transit in London has no business going to LA. If she thinks the tube is scary, the transit in California will be a hellish experience. LA is a shitty place unless you have lots of money. A kid who probably couldn't even handle Benidorm will have a terrible time in LA. It is dangerous to wander around LA not knowing where you are. If she's in therapy and is taking any recommended medications, and can handle a week in London navigating the underground, maybe she can go on a guided tour somewhere closer to home instead. Traveling alone? No. The US? Comment 3. Would customs even let her in if she has no place to stay and little money? I saw a guy get kicked off the train at the border, traveling from Montreal to NYC with a backpack and no clear plan. They ask where you're staying, why you're there, how long you'll be there, etc. Also, the TSA scared me and I haven't ever had travel anxiety. I gave birth to my daughter, Ember, 4 months ago. My husband and I both loved her name and that's how it was chosen. We announced the day she was born and nobody said anything negative or gave a reason for us not to use it then. I say this because 3 days ago my Sil, who is married to my brother, sat me down and asked me to change the name because it's the name of her stillborn daughter she had with her ex-husband 7 years ago. She told me she tried to keep it quiet but she couldn't let me keep calling my daughter Ember because it's such a painful reminder for her. She told me she really feels like we should change her name. I gently told Sil that my daughter was 4 months old and her name is on the birth certificate and it would cost us to change it, so we will not. She told me she tried so hard not to say anything and the fact she did eventually break and bring this up should show how hard this is for her and make me more willing to change the name for her sake. I told my husband about it afterward and he felt the same way I did. He told me it seemed like a weak excuse to wait for, almost 5 months, to tell us, when she had the chance long before this. My brother found out about the conversation with his wife and he reached out and told me she mentioned it to him 2 months ago and that she was battling with asking us to change the name since, but he understands why I said no and supports the decision. Yesterday she reached out to me again and asked me if we had decided on a new name yet and I told her my answer is still no and she asked why and I told her she waited 4 months to tell us. She became very angry very quickly and told me if she had lost my niece my response would be different and I should see this as her losing my niece because she would have been if she were alive. She also told me my daughter is going to grow up always hearing about the cousin I gave her the same name as and that I should reconsider before burdening my daughter with that. She told me a good person with good morals would. I should also mention, I knew she had suffered a pregnancy loss, but it was implied she had a miscarriage far earlier and not a stillborn child. I never knew the name or gender. And I never ever heard her use a name for her daughter. Comment 1, okay. Look. You are NTA for keeping your child's name. Sil needs therapy. One who is an expert in child loss. But you're mad at her for not telling you sooner, but would that have even changed anything? I bet the answer is no. Your husband is wrong saying it's a weak excuse to have waited to say anything when in fact it shows she was trying to come to terms with it. Have empathy for her. She lost a child. You may one day be in her shoes. I hope you never are, but well, shit happens. So look, stop blaming her. She shouldn't keep pestering you. But she did seemingly try to get over it. And until you lose a child you'll never know or understand her pain. How about compromise? Can she call the child a nickname? You are NTA for not changing her name. She isn't one for having some rough feelings regarding this either. Though the pestering of you changing it leans her toward a territory. Again, you aren't an R. You picked the name that you love. You didn't do it to be malicious as you didn't know. OP comment. If I had known right away I would have been willing to pick a different name. Before it was on the birth certificate. But I am not willing to change it after 4 months. Comment 2. NTA. Your Sil needs therapy. Though I understand her pain, she doesn't get to dictate how others live to accommodate her trauma. On top of that, there is zero reason your daughter should hear anything about her cousin, unless your Sil is vindictive and purposely wants to traumatize her. The proper response here is that if your Sil mentions her stillborn child to your daughter even once, she will be cut off. My wife, 35F, and I, 36M, have been married for 4 years and have 2 kids, 3 and 1. My wife's parents divorced when she was a teenager and both her mom and dad have since remarried. There is a lot of competition between her mom, dad, and stepmom in terms of family time. Everything has to be equal. Meaning if we spend an afternoon with her mom, then we have to do the same thing with her dad and stepmom. Mom and stepmom especially put a lot of pressure on my wife and guilt trip her about it. My wife has a lot of trouble standing up for herself and saying no. Before we had kids, this wasn't as big of a deal. If we had to attend 2 to 3 different Thanksgivings or Christmas gatherings, not a huge deal. I mean, it sucked, but it wasn't the end of the world. Now though, with 2 young kids, it's exhausting and I absolutely hate it. My wife and I have had numerous talks about her setting boundaries about this because I am at the end of my rope with it. The bickering and pressure is constant and the need to keep everything equal essentially determines our entire non-work schedule. We had to attend 2 separate Easter events this spring. We're not even religious, because we went to one with her mom, so we had to do one with her dad and stepmom. After that, I told my wife I was done with this BS. I told her that she needs to stand up to her parents and start setting boundaries and saying no. I told her I won't allow her parents to continue to dictate how we live our lives. I told her if she is incapable of doing this, then I will absolutely step in and tell them off. But she begged me not to do that because she doesn't want to ruffle feathers and promised she would do better. Of course, that didn't happen. We ended up having to run around to 3 separate places on Memorial Weekend because of this same stuff. After we got home from the last stop, I told my wife I am done with this and will now pick and choose which things I want to go to. I won't stop her from going and I will stay home with one or both kids if she doesn't want to take them, but I'm done. Lo and behold, this past weekend she was talking to her mom and 4th of July came up. My Phil had already invited us to his house for a pool day and my wife told her mom about it. So, of course we have to do something with them that weekend as well. When my wife told me about this, I told her that I will not be attending both and I will choose if I want to attend either. My wife must have vented to her mom about this because a couple days later, I got a call from my wife's stepdad, the only sane person in this, really. He told me that he completely agrees with me and that he's talked with his wife numerous times about not pressuring my wife, but she doesn't listen either. He suggested that whenever his wife pressures my wife into keeping things equal, that he and I go golfing together instead. When I told my wife about this idea, she called me a J and told me I'm being unsupportive. Comment 1. NTA. Sounds like you have been exceptionally patient with the situation, and you and Dad have told them the problem they're causing. Your wife should respect your boundaries, or fix the situation. Both options are fine, but fixing it would be better. Many families swap and rotate holidays and that seems more reasonable. I feel for your wife, it sounds like she is caught between feuding wives, but 2 people pleasing to stand up for herself. Comment 2. NTA, I think you're being totally reasonable. If your wife is unwilling to have an adult discussion with the 3 parents making things difficult, then she should have to deal with all the visits, and the children if they want to go. Hopefully she realizes there are better ways to go about this or decide to host these events at your home, inviting both sets of grandparents and having one event together. Here's the situation. I, 32M, run a small tech startup that I've been building from the ground up for the past 5 years. It's been a tough journey, but things have finally started to look up. Recently, I was on the verge of securing a major deal with a prominent investor, which could potentially take my company to the next level. My sister, 28F, has always been somewhat envious of my business success. She works in a related field but hasn't had the same level of success. I've always tried to support her and even offered her a job at my company before, which she initially declined. A few weeks ago, I invited my sister to a dinner meeting with the investor, thinking it would be nice to include her and showcase her skills. However, during the dinner, she made several negative comments about my business, implying that my company wasn't as stable as I claimed and that the investor should be cautious. I was shocked and furious, but I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the investor. The next day, the investor called to tell me they were reconsidering their decision, citing the concerns my sister had raised. I was devastated. This deal was crucial for my company's growth, and my sister's actions felt like a betrayal. I confronted her about it, and she apologized, saying she didn't realize the impact her words would have. She then asked me to reconsider hiring her, stating that she now needed the job due to her own financial difficulties. I refused to hire her, citing the damage she had already caused and my lack of trust in her professional judgment. She argued that family should come first and that I should give her another chance, but I feel like hiring her after what she did would be a huge risk for my business. Now, our parents and some family members are pressuring me to hire her, saying that she didn't mean any harm and that I should be more understanding and forgiving. Comment 1. NTA and WTF was that? She works in a related field, so do you believe she didn't know the damage her words were causing? I'd have a hard time not believing the only reason she wanted to work WU in the first place was BC she wanted to sabotage your company the way she did your deal. I'd keep as much distance between you and her as possible in fact. Also, you might have a case against her for defamation. And keep your ear to the ground in case she continues that. As for your parents and the other flying monkeys, tell them if they're prepared to reimburse you for the losses you'll potentially suffer as the result of her malicious meddling, then you'll consider hiring her, as doorman. Comment 2. NTA. She's right, family is important. Which is why she should never have badmouthed her brother's company. It's pretty simple, you offered her a job because you were expecting growth. She destroyed that growth. She eliminated her own job. You can no longer afford to have nepotism hires like your sister, and it's her fault. Throw her own words back at her. Why would she want to work at a company that isn't stable? She should get a job that will guarantee her finances, not one that she needs to be cautious of. Comment 3. NTA for not hiring your sister, she knew exactly what she was doing. But the business deal isn't completely all your sister's fault. This was a professional dinner for business, your sister had no place being there in any capacity, and that showed poor judgment. Especially as your sister had an axle to grind against you. In future, another co-worker or spouse, who knows not to engage in anything other than small talk, are the only people who should accompany you to talk turkey with a potential investor. The dinners are not only about the business but the people who run them. Potential investors want to see under the hood, as it were, before they sink their finances with you.